and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another stupendous installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Friday. It's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends, Open Line Friday. This is the day where we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. You don't realize what enormous risk I put this program under every Friday, and what risk I put our dear producer under every Friday. He never knows what's coming or what's happening, and for a producer, that's kind of a tricky situation. Ooh, you're making noise.
Terrifying. Yeah, well, I'm getting old. So you use that expression in the beginning, the freedom that comes from a live. I don't see it as freedom.
Well, it's my freedom. It's not your freedom.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the program, my friends. It is Open Line Friday, and if you want to be part of the show, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. There's plenty of stuff to talk about.
But don't call it because I don't want to talk to you.
Oh, stop. I want you to call it. Call it for no other reason than to irritate Ken. I mean, if you don't have any reason to call in, there's one of them. I mean, that one will work, and yeah, I can't be held responsible for what happens later.
Yeah,
but
just remember that I have the mute button.
It's true. He does push my buttons. Well, and it's not that there isn't a lot to talk about. Yesterday, there was a lot of announcements coming out, and many of them are kind of like the old guard trying to reassert itself. And it's, once you stamp out, and viruses are a lot like this. And now, Ken, how many times have you been told, do you think people are told by a doctor, now take all of the antibiotics that I prescribed you, take all of the medication?
Yeah, even if you start feeling better, just take it till they're gone.
Right.
I obviously didn't.
Obviously. And with the old guard, it's more like the flu than it is a cold. And you see, I don't know how many times you've had this experience, but you get over the flu and you start feeling better, and you get enormously hungry because you haven't been able to eat for a really long time. And so that you seek out the nearest pile of greasy eggs and bacon and pancakes, and maybe throw some mashed potatoes on top of it, and you wolf it all down, and then shortly thereafter, you start feeling bad again, and bad things happen. Well, that's very similar to what you're seeing with the members of the Wyoming caucus.
Yeah, except for describing it as the flu, I would use typhoid.
Typhoid, yeah.
It never
Whooping
goes
cough, polio.
Never goes away.
Tuberculosis. Well, what you're seeing is a lot of the figures that were central to the Wyoming caucus have now decided that they're going to try it again. And in the best example of that is Chi-Com Som, Albert Sommers. He was defeated by now Senator Laura Pearson when he tried to run for the Wyoming Senate. And now, since his old House District 20, has opened up again. Representative Mike Schmidt isn't going to run for a second term. And so Chicom Som thinks that that seat is open for the taking.
I'll tell you, part of what it means with the old guard coming back is there's nobody to replace them.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I find that pretty interesting. You know, if they are as mainstream as they would claim to be, where's the next generation? And you're going to
there
see
isn't
some
one.
people coming on the conservative side out of the next generation. There's a guy
Several
named,
of them.
There's a guy named Server, and some. I'm not going to try to single them all out, but they're out there and they're coming, and there's a wave behind that. There's a wave of more younger people who have said, I got to get my kids a little farther along, and those sorts of things.
Well, a lot of what you saw during the legislative session was very well. I was going to use the word very reminiscent, but it's still kind of going on. But it's the same thing you saw at the federal level during Trump's first term. So everybody thought that Hillary Clinton was going to get elected. I had my doubts, and then on election night, stayed up till 2:00 in the morning. Of course, I was living in Virginia at that time. Stayed up till about 2:00 in the morning, and we found out that Trump had won. And while we had the top office and things looked great, what Trump experienced was a resurgence of the entrenched bureaucracy. A lot of people refer to it as the deep state, but that's what it is.
The swamp.
Yeah, the swamp, the entrenched bureaucrats that have been there long before he was, and are many of them are still there. So what happened in this past session is conservatives were in control of the House of Representatives, and a lot of these old-timers, these crusty old Democrats that have been masquerading as Republicans for a really long time, well, they didn't like it so much, and they really pushed back. And now what you're seeing in this election is some of those old-timers that did have control at one point are kind of reasserting themselves. They're like the flu that you thought you beat, the virus that your doctor was trying to kill off and you didn't listen to him. But that is what is happening right now.
Yeah, they may not be running themselves. You know, they might just be sitting out there writing op-eds. Tom Lubnow.
Yes. Yeah.
But
well, and then they've got their cast of familiar characters in the media. But even then, I think that there are some people in the media, not very many, but there are at least a few people in the media that are tired of writing the same old redcoat slop. And that's what it is. Like anytime you're defending any of these redcoats and not being critical of the things that they do, it's slop. And let me give you a perfect example. Chicom Som. I've got a couple of sound bites here. And what was happening during this is we were debating whether or not Wyoming citizens should have the ability to pay off debts, namely taxes, with gold. That gold should be recognized as a form of currency in the state. And one of these, because I think that they're from successive legislative sessions. These didn't happen in the same session. And then I think the second time around, the second soundbite, is from when we had the bill, and I don't remember the bill number, but it was to say that the state had to purchase a certain amount of gold and have that in reserve. So listen to this. Okay, so this is Chicom Som. This will tell you how unintelligent he is.
Gold, the dollar bill is less volatile than gold. I don't understand this. I don't understand why it's good policy.
The dollar is more stable than gold. That's absurd. Okay, now both of them are volatile, but the reason why you see the price of gold go up is when the dollar becoms unstable. That's what you're seeing right now with gold over whatever it is, 4,000 an ounce.
One way I was always taught to measure it is an ounce of gold throughout history is basically one really good suit of clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's still that way.
Absolutely, yes. And so to put it another way, play on the same metaphor, if you had a gold coin 100 years ago, what could you buy with it? Well, I mean, you could probably buy two pretty nice suits. And if you fast forward to today, that same 1 ounce gold coin at $4,000 an ounce, you could probably buy two pretty nice suits with it. It's not the value of gold that changes; it's the value of the dollar. So here's the second sound bite from Chi-Com Som.
I really don't understand why we would even contemplate going down this path. There's no value in it. We can,
No value
our
in gold.
investment team can invest in gold shares, gold now, if they think it's a wise choice, or silver shares, or whatever. Now, maybe they can't hold gold, or we can't hold the material, but, I think this is apocalypse thinking. Is the apocalypse on us, and we're going to need gold to trade and barter in some future day when the world is ended? I mean, I just don't get it. This is not sound fiscal investment policy.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And if we'd have just invested in gold right then when we brought it up.
No kidding. Because right then, I think gold was slightly over. I think it was slightly over $2,000 an ounce. But that's the type of critical thinking that you get from Chi-Com Som. A couple of my favorite sound bites.
And it's a common line from that side to start off a soliloquy with, I just don't understand.
Yes.
Okay, now you remind me of Marilyn Conley. Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
But I think I had to laugh because there was a quote over in one of the local papers the other day, and the first thing it started off with is, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much what she does the entire time. Then another member of the Wyoming caucus that is decided to run is Steve Harshman. Good old Steve Harshman. And so now he's going to try to be the superintendent of public instruction. And he enters a race with one of Gordon's bureaucrats. What's his name? Chad Auer? Is that his name? And then Representative Tom Kelly. And, everything that Harshman has done, I mean, if there is a dollar laying around, Harshman makes it his job to try to put that dollar into education. He'll find a way. If there is a way to shove a plug nickel into Wyoming education, he'll find it.
Or completely write the Wyoming tax code as an amendment to.
Yeah.
He's done it.
Yeah. I mean, it is several of his amendments. And it's always during a budget session, and it's almost always on third reading. He'll come out with this giant amendment that completely rewrites the tax code.
Yeah, but he never legislates in the budget.
No, he never does that.
When he pointed a finger at me trying to tell me that's what I was doing, I said, well, I just learned from the best.
Well, anyway, my friends, there's several people that are running for different offices, and what it is they think that you have only partially gotten over your sickness and you haven't taken all of your antibiotics to prevent the redcoats from coming back, and so they're going to try it again. But the thing to remember is that these people have not changed. Okay, so maybe their rhetoric has changed. Maybe they've moderated their tone a little bit. But that doesn't mean that they're different at all. They're the same redcoats, and it doesn't matter how they try to phrase it or frame it in public that they've changed. So, but lots of those going on, and we'll keep you updated on a bunch of them.
Interesting that you talk about moderating tone.
Yeah.
I'm kind of persuaded that moderating one's tone is a death knell.
It is. Well, I think it is.
Yeah, I think especially if you are trying to make some changes, then you definitely need to be bold.
Well, and it's politicians continually do this when it comes around election time. They'll go from town hall to town hall, and maybe they're talking to a conservative group of people on a Tuesday, and then on a Thursday they're talking to they're down at the Hub on Smith talking to all the people that are worried about their social security. And you change. You stop being the budget hawk, and you turn into that. Well, we just need to be in the middle on this thing. We don't need to be so radical.
Yeah, you do have to learn to read a room.
True.
Or read an audience, but man, people. You brought it up the other day. People will say about myself, may not agree with him, but I know where he stands.
Yeah.
And people appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why this program is growing and has grown to be as large as it is, that it's the same program, well, much better much better. And I can't talk now. See, I was going to say it's better well run now than it was before, but apparently the host isn't any better. But
Well, we're working on that. We're actually doing some interviews here.
oh, unbeknownst to me, huh? Anyway, it's the same program as it was 6 years ago. I haven't changed my opinion because why would I? I'm almost always right. But people like consistency, and it's as Ronald Reagan said. It's people are not looking for pale pastels. They're looking for bold colors. And if you want to have an effective message, that's what it needs to be. Like your opponent. I'm still waiting for you, Melissa, to come on this program. But she gave an interview to the Cowboy the other day, and it was essentially, well, I'm going to listen to people. Okay, yeah, that's a good skill every elected person needs to have. You need to be able to listen to your constituency. But what is it that you want to do? Why is it that you're running? What policies are you in favor of? What is the what drives you to run for office aside from just listening?
How do you do anything if you're not driven by some ideology? And she says she's not at all interested in ideology. Well, ideology is that framework upon which you build your position.
It's your belief structure, is what it is. And it's funny how the left uses language. I should say the left uses language. My left, not your left. They try to rephrase or redefine words that are used commonly. Ideology is one of them. And so there's an attempt being made. And if you read, if you stay up on all the political articles, you'll notice this, that I'm not ideological. Well, first, that's a contradiction in terms because everyone is ideological. That doesn't say
you can't make that statement without an ideology that says so.
Exactly right. It's your belief system. What is it that you believe in?
Well, they like to say, "I'm going to listen." Well,
yeah.
If you listen, you will hear. I used the word cacophony the other day. That's what you'll hear. You'll hear everything from every side, and you would be completely paralyzed. You would not please anyone. When you do take a stand, you get emails.
Well, yes, you do. And you got a good one yesterday.
Yeah.
But my point is that if you want the same old stuff, the same thing that you've been given, and there's a great piece on the Open Range Record about these Wyoming conservatives, as that's the common phrase they're using. I'm not Freedom Caucus. I'm a Wyoming conservative, as if the word conservative means something different in Wyoming than it does everywhere else. But what you've got for purchasing that load of crap is a barely increasing GDP, way higher taxes, increased a lot in the last 5 years, a gigantic increase in government spending. Less freedoms, more government workers. I mean, it's a really long list of the bad stuff that we've got.
At some point, we should talk about the GDP thing.
Well, let's do it.
Well, I want to have charts and graphs.
Oh, you don't need charts and graphs for this one. So what Ken is talking about is a lot of these statistics depend upon a great deal on the definitions that you're using.
Yeah, input.
Right.
What are you calculating into it?
And it's true that statistics lie, and liars use statistics. But in this case, and let me ask you this. Maybe we should ask, tell you what, I'll ask the question, and we'll see if we can get somebody to call in and talk about this. So what is the number one industry in Wyoming? Is it tourism? Is it, looky there? Is it tourism? Is it our extractive industries? Don't you dare preempt my game.
I was going to say, I have an Oscar here that we will give to whoever can accurately answer.
Yeah, well, and it may be the person that actually showed me the data on this. But there's the question. What is the number one industry in Wyoming? And I bet that you'll be surprised when we actually tell you what that is. All right, so let's see. Let's go ahead and take a call. Let's talk to Chelsea in Gillette. How are you this morning, Chelsea? Welcome to the program.
Hey, David. I'm doing good. I'm getting ready for the Babylon Bee tomorrow.
Heck yeah, I got my tickets, and we are going to be there. Why don't you tell our audience about that?
Sure. So Kyle Mann is coming. He's the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee. And after all the mudslinging, we're hoping to have some political satire and laugh about everything we've been through the past couple months.
Well, it's true. You know, politics is funny. You know, and politicians do funny stuff, and I absolutely think that we should laugh at them.
I agree. Some laughter through truth is, or fake news and some truth is good through all that.
Oh, well, it is, and we're going into an election, and you know, probably after 2 weeks of it, people are going to be tired of listening to a whole bunch of politicians, and so you know, we should take a break and laugh. And so, why don't you give us the details on that? How do people get tickets?
Sure.
Where do they go?
Sure. So CampbellCountyRepublicanWomen.com. It's going to be in Gillette at the Camplex at 7 p.m. And that's general admission. We are having Prime Rib Restaurant cater the VIP time with Kyle Mann. You can get your picture taken with him and eat some hors d'oeuvres before the main event, and that starts at 5:30. So
Heck yeah,
also
that's
the Gillette
what I'm
Bighorn
coming
Band. Yeah, we all love a little prime rib restaurant. It's the best.
All right, so where do people go if they want to get tickets?
Sure. Yep. CampbellCountyRepublicanWomen.com. It's under our events, and there's tickets there.
Okay, great. So CampbellCountyRepublicanWomen.com. It is Kyle Mann from the Babylon Bee tomorrow it's at the Camplex, right?
Yes, at the Camplex.
All right. So if you want to laugh, go get some tickets.
I'm sitting here wondering what the number one industry in Wyoming is.
Yeah, Chelsea, do you know what the number one industry in Wyoming is? You live in Gillette, so maybe you have a thought on that.
You mean like legacy industry? Like
Well, I
oil?
don't know. No, I'm saying
The
like
largest employer, largest business, largest activity, I guess.
Oh,
I
the
don't
school, the state government. The
Ah.
state government is the largest.
oh, see, our game
Yeah.
did not go very far.
Yep. We will make sure to send along our Oscar. Only special people get one of these. I ordered a dozen before the session and gave a few of them out. You'll be proud to know that Trey Sherwood and Carly Provenza both have one.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, yeah. You're in great
You
company.
are. so who do you got with you, Chelsea?
This is Jenny. She's 6 months old, and she is very lively.
All right. Hi, Jenny. I know you probably can't respond, but welcome to the program.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, she keeps me busy.
All right, Chelsea. Well,
So I was actually calling because you were talking about conservatism, and
Yeah.
I think we need to have a new word
what do
for
we got?
conservatism.
What do you got?
So I think we should call ourselves platform Republicans.
Okay.
That's been suggested.
It's
That's been
to the root of it.
suggested, and I appreciate that. But my question is, why are we always the ones that get pushed off of our terminology?
Yeah, it's our word. Why do we have to find a new word?
I agree. They took the rainbow. They take all sorts of words that are meaningful to us in some way, and you distort them and rename them and use them. They even distort truth, and you can use your own truth now. And
Yeah.
that's what matters.
Yeah, everybo's got their own
So,
truth.
uh,
But you know this
Yeah.
they constantly use this word conservative, and now before you called in we were talking about now they're using the term Wyoming conservative, as if being a conservative in Wyoming is different from being a conservative in, say, Texas.
Or as if we're not from Wyoming.
Yeah, I was listening to you say that. Yeah, I agree. It's disturbing that we can't have our own terminology, that they take things and distort them and hide behind
I agree.
true conservatism.
Absolutely. All right, so there's one term, platform Republicans. Oh, Ken's got your Oscar sitting on the board. Oh, there it is.
There he is.
All right, I'll bring that to you tomorrow night when I see you in
top-heavy.
Gillette.
All right, that'd be great. See you then, David.
All right, have a good one. Thanks for calling, Chelsea. All right. So if you want to be part of the program, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. Whatever you want to talk about. I mean, it's Open Line Friday, which means, now I'm not saying how long you'll talk, but it is Open Line Friday. So whatever's on your mind, go ahead and give me a call. One more time, that phone number is 307-374-8989. So what we were talking about before Chelsea called in is this whole idea of what have the so-called Wyoming conservatives given you. And there's a long list, and you can find this article on the Open Range Record, and it's entitled, They Say They're Wyoming Conservatives. Here's what that really means. Here, I'll show you what the image looks like, and I'll Ken, remind me, and I'll push that article up to the top, and so it'd be easy to find.
Consider yourself reminded, because I won't remember.
Well, I mean, you got to do your job. Your job is to keep me on task and keep me pointed in the right direction. All right, so here's the list of the things that Wyoming conservatives have given you, so-called. I mean, it's really the Wyoming caucus, the Redcoats. A median household income that is 8% below the U.S. average. Real GDP that is 10.3% behind the United States, so 3.1% as opposed to 13.4%. Real inflation that is 7% higher than the United States average, so 30% as opposed to 23%. 73% increase in residential property taxes. The only property that I know of that really has had an appreciable decrease in property taxes is those properties owned by the government. 30% increase in sales tax, 64% increases in Wyoming state revenues. Let me ask you this, Ken, has your income gone up 64%?
Actually,
no, it's gone down.
Due to me taking this gig, it has gone the other way.
59% increase in Wyoming state expenditures. $13.8 billion in excess revenue collected from Wyoming taxpayers. So in other words, they've collected $105 billion, but they've only spent $91.3. It is absolutely wrong that the government takes more money than is absolutely necessary. Now, the Redcoats, they want to say, look at how much money we've put in savings. That is the same thing as saying is, look at how much money we've stolen from you that was more than what we actually needed. That's what they're telling you, that we overtaxed you to death, and instead of giving that money back to you, because obviously we don't need it, we've put it in the savings account.
And the ability to have that savings account, we use those earnings to pay taxes for you so that you don't feel how big government really is.
Right. State and local cash reserves. This one's crazy. So if you add up all of the cash that's sitting in bank accounts, that money that has been taken from you, that number is $42 billion. It's not the $30 billion that is down in the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. It's actually 42, because in every county in this state, there are big, big, big reserve accounts. State of Wyoming is spending $4 billion more per year in 2025, so last year, than they did in 2019. 42% of Wyoming's 315 schools do not meet or only partially meet expectations. 40% of Wyoming's 88,690 students are either at basic or below in their 3 through 10th grade test scores. Less than 60% are proficient or advanced. And enrollment in Wyoming schools has gone down while administration has gone up. And there's a lot more to this. So when you hear these insiders, Wyoming caucus, these Redcoats, there's lots of names that I've used for them. When they tell you how much better things were when they were in power, go back to this article and just look at what they brought you, because none of it is really good.
What they really mean by how much better it was we were able to operate with a certain amount of impunity because nobody had any idea what we were really doing. Nobody was paying attention.
Yeah. Until Cowboy state politics came along. So let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to tell you about another politician who the media says he's stepping down. Yeah, I don't know about that. I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics is only going to get stronger. This program, much to the dismay of those at the cow pie, is only getting bigger and bigger. Thank you for watching, my friends. Thank you for everything you do for the program. Make sure that you share this program with everybody that you know. And we just want to grow this audience. And we're going into an election season. And so it is more important than ever. It's Open Line Friday. If you want to be part of the show, the phone number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. That will get you directly to me and Agent 29, even though he doesn't like it. To the turkey vulture. Governor Gordon will not seek a third term, stepping down in January. Now, we don't have to go too much farther than the headline to see that there's a major problem here. Most notably, that Gordon can't seek a third term because the governor is term limited out in Wyoming. So before he could even do that, he would have to he would have to sue and take it to court. He would have to, go to the Supreme Court and say, I want to run again. Now, that says nothing about what our liberal Supreme Court would probably do. I mean, these are the people that wrote a right to abortion into Wyoming law. Not Wyoming statute, Wyoming law. Nowhere in Wyoming statutes does it say that abortion is health care, and yet those black-robed liberals on the Wyoming Supreme Court said that, all on their own, they said that abortion is health care. So, if they're going to do that, why wouldn't we think that maybe they might say that the governor could run for a third term? Because they've already overturned the term limits for the other 4 top 5 elected. So,
No, they sure would. They wouldn't point to anything, and I'm not trying to steal any thunder. Just the legislature gets trounced on at every turn. The judiciary rules from the bench and changes laws or writes laws from there. The executive, when he doesn't get his way, he writes an executive order and writes into existence a whole new program. which the legislature has already rejected, but we're not talking about that right now.
Well, I mean, they do that all the time. And it is, it is the classic case of judicial activism that, they just say that, well, they can make any claim that they want. The legislature passes a law and then somebody sues, and then the Supreme Court just says, well, we're just going to rewrite laws. I mean, that is the classic case of judicial activism. So, in other words, Governor Gordon cannot seek a third term because he's term limited out, and he's not stepping down. Stepping down means that you are resigning. You're not going to do it anymore. You're not. You're just not going to go forward anymore. And if he actually is stepping down, that means that he's not going to finish his term as governor. You see, words mean things, and apparently the media uses words to convince you of things that aren't true. So this headline from the Turkey Vulture is an attempt to convince you of two things. One, that Governor Gordon could seek a third term right now, that he could file for election and that he could run and, perhaps get reelected. That's not true. The other thing that the headline is trying to convince you of is that, well, he's just decided he's not going to run again. He's stepping down. He's not going to finish the job. And, it's a perfect example of how the media twists things. But here's what the article says. Quote, Governor Gordon announced Thursday that he will not seek a third term as the state's top elected official, ending months of speculation over whether he would attempt to challenge the state's gubernatorial term limits. So then, in the first paragraph, they contradict what the headline says. He told the Tribune Eagle that the decision was not a difficult one, and that he was never really in doubt about his future. Quote, I didn't really have any grand ideas about serving longer than that. I always feel that these are jobs that you do because it's about service. It's about giving back. And this is a state that's given a lot to me, and it's not about a career. Meeting with his full cabinet to outline the agenda for his remaining time in the State House, Gordon signaled that he intends to remain, quote, highly active until his successor is sworn in next January. Now, we're going to run through the tape strong, Gordon said in a news release. We've just come off a solid legislative win, securing the essentials budget to help meet the needs of people in Wyoming. But we're not done yet. Now, again, I don't know why he's putting so much effort into all this messaging if he's not planning to doing something. Don't know what that might be. I really, it's possible that he could run for the Senate, challenge Representative Hageman, though. I don't know. To me, that's the only one. If he were going to run for another office, that would be the one. He's certainly not going to jump in with 10, 12, whatever it is, 27 other people running for the House of Representatives. He's not going to jump in that race. So if he is going to run again, it will be the Senate. But, I don't know. What do you think, Ken? Do you think he's going to try to run for the Senate, or is he going to try to do something else?
It does seem like he's going to try to do something, but what could it be? At one point when we were still looking for a president of the UW, I heard his name bandied about a little bit. That didn't happen. So
right.
Hard to say.
Well, who knows? Who knows what the guy's going to do? And I don't think that anybody really knows. I certainly don't. That's why I say, maybe he'll try to do that. Hope not. I hope he just goes back to Johnson County, sticks around on his ranch, and enjoys his retirement. I hope that's the case.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, well, whatever. Okay, so that's Gordo. We probably ought to cover the top story on Iran I saw this morning. So Trump says that Iran has totally agreed to give up nuclear ambitions. The deal, he's very close to a deal, and said he would go to Pakistan to seal it. From Breitbart, quote, President Donald Trump said Thursday that Iran has totally agreed to give up its nuclear ambitions, declaring a deal is very close, and he suggested that the current ceasefire may not need to be extended, and said he would go to Pakistan to seal an agreement if finalized. Speaking outside that White House Thursday, Trump said that Tehran has now agreed to meet Washington's red line that it will never obtain a nuclear weapon after weeks of sustained military pressure and the U.S. blockade. Quote, we had to make sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, Trump said. They've totally agreed to that. They've agreed to almost everything. So Trump was out on the White House lawn getting ready to leave, and as he normally does, he was taking questions from reporters. Now, it's kind of hard to hear on this video, but here it is.
Considering extending the ceasefire with Iran?
With who?
With Iran.
We're doing very well, I can tell you. Maybe it'll happen before that. I'm not sure it needs to be extended. Just so you know, Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor. And they're willing to do things today that they weren't willing to do 2 months ago.
Okay, so they're willing to do things today that they probably weren't interested in doing a couple of weeks ago. And the truth is, they've been holding the world hostage. You know, when you have somebody that they don't really have any cards to play except to threaten to kill somebody. I mean, that's extortion. It's holding somebody hostage. And what they did is they said that they mined the Strait of Hormuz, and that was the only thing they had left. They don't have an Air Force anymore. They don't have a Navy. They don't really. I mean, who knows? And here's a question that I have: that how do we know who it is that we are negotiating with? I mean, there's really no communication left in Iran. Pretty much a lot of it's been knocked out, and you got to imagine that there are several groups vying to fill the power vacuum that's there. So I mean, that's a big question I have. You know, how do we know who it is that we're negotiating with? And do we actually have a regime change? Because if the Revolutionary Guard is still in control, it's the same country. It's just been bombed into oblivion, but it's the same people there. And you know, if you it's the same thing we talk about all the time. You elect somebody new, they don't change the bureaucracy, and then you wonder why things are still the same. I hope that's not the case in Iran, but who knows? Okay, so I think it was yesterday we briefly spoke about. Let's see here. Yes, we briefly spoke about this post, and this is from somebody in Natrona County, and they signed up for Nancy Case's new website, his new newsletter. And turns out that you'll get an email from Bruce at turnfremontblue.com. And there's the website. And I'm sure by this point they've cleaned all this up. But Bruce is Bruce Palmer. So question being, who then is Bruce Palmer? Well, to answer that question, we need to get back in the Wayback Machine, get in the Wayback Machine, go all the way back to August 2018. And this just shows you the effectiveness of Cowboy state politics, because, you know, I would venture to guess that very few hosts would have made this connection. So in August of 2018, Mark Gordon was campaigning to run for governor his first time around. And it was a pretty contentious election. We had several different people in the race, among them Harriet Hageman and Sam Galiotis and Foster Freeze. So Wildfile publishes this article, and it's entitled "Switch for Wyoming, Primary Election Group Revealed." Now, this is back when Wildfile actually did news, instead of just being the mouthpiece for Liz Storr and the Democrat Party.
It was a long time ago.
It was a really long time ago. And I guess I should preface this by saying that in Wyoming, robocalls are illegal. If you're a candidate running for office, you cannot use robocalls. One of the, it was an attempt to to reduce the amount of information that citizens are just inundated with.
Unfortunately, you can use text messages.
Unfortunately, you can do that. Also, unfortunately, they can fill your mailbox full of their campaign propaganda. But, you know, I mean, in my house, the mail comes in. Oh, yep, that's trash, into the waste bin it goes. But this is from Wildfile. A longtime progressive activist backed independent Republicans of Wyoming. You remember that? Do you remember that group, Ken?
I can't remember last week.
Well, I realize that you're at your advanced age.
No,
it's hard.
No, I don't. And it's interesting because, well, I won't get into that, but no, I don't.
So Independent Republicans of Wyoming was I can't remember if it was actually a political action committee or if it was just a company that was set up. But anyway, it was a group, and they showed up kind of at the tail end of the 2018 campaign cycle. And you know, when you in the name it says Republicans of Wyoming, so you tend to think, well, I'm sure that's probably they probably are Republicans. However, before I go down that road, so about the only thing that they did is they paid for a robocall campaign on behalf of Mark Gordon. Now, at the time, again, robocalls are illegal for good reason. And at the time, Governor, and this screenshot, it's kind of blurry, but let me just read it to you. It says, today has seen a mess of misleading robocalls. Everything from a group suggesting that I'm against coal to another suggesting that Democrats should, quote, switch for Wyoming and register as a Republican. These are all misleading messages and designed to undermine the integrity of the election. As a lifelong Republican and conservative, I urge all Wyoming voters to cast their ballots on the candidate that most aligns with their view, blah, blah, blah. So another group, Switch for Wyoming. Same type. And today, this is more pronounced. If you're on social media, you may have seen several different groups, Wyoming Grit being one of them, Frontier Stand. There's a billboard that's down by the Rock Creek exit right north of Buffalo, trying to tell you how bad Honor Wyoming is. But it says it's paid for by Frontier Stand. And there has been a proliferation of these nebulously named groups. And when you go try to find out who they actually are, who runs them, you can't. I mean, their profiles just don't say it. They don't have a name on
But
them.
they always point at groups like Honor Wyoming and say, who has on their website who's in charge.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. The billboard that's down by Buffalo, it looks like a report card. And one of them, it says transparency, and then there's an F on it. So wait a minute. The group that is talking about transparency doesn't tell you who they are. So anyway, so there was the Independent Republicans of Wyoming. Now, it was a group stirred controversy by encouraging Democrats and Republicans to switch parties and vote for Mark Gordon in the primary election. In response to inquiries from the news outlet Wildfile that used to actually do news, Jackson resident Liz Storr said she and others had funded the group to increase moderate voter turnout and would report its contributors and expenditures later this month as required by the Wyoming Secretary of State. The group weighed in to the election anonymously, and again, this is from 2018, anonymously, with a website and Facebook group credited to a newly created 501c4 limited liability corporation. All right, so why is the type of nonprofit important here? Because a 501c3 has to report its contributors. A 501c4 does not have to report their contributors. So even though Liz Storr says that they're going to report their contributions, the type of organization that they were doesn't have to. The LLC was created on August 15th, 6 days before the primary election, and listed a company dedicated to registering LLCs as its agent, so much like 30 North Gould. So really, really murky as to who actually runs it. And according to the filing with the Secretary of State, the LLC tactic is similar to those used by groups who attacked Gordon's conservative credentials with mailed flyers. Now, and let's go back to Gordon's statement for a minute, if we could, Ken. Okay, so it says these are misleading messages designed to undermine the integrity of the election. And they're suggesting that I am against coal, to another suggesting that Democrats should switch for Wyoming. So where would they get such a funny idea as that Mark Gordon might be against energy? Well, that comes from a 2002 article from High Country News. High Country News is another publication owned, or at least at one time, it was owned by, wait for it, Liz Storr. So in that 2002 article, and let me just show you what the top of it, it's called Dear Friends. 2001 article. And we scroll down a little bit more. And it's talking about Michelle Barlow. Michelle Barlow, that is Eric Barlow's sister. And it says, the meeting was a lively introduction for 3 new board members. Michelle Barlow is a director of the Environmental Quality and Justice at the Wyoming Outdoor Council. She grew up outside of Gillette on her family's 18,000-acre ranch. Her parents, Bill and Bernie Barlow, helped found the Powder River Basin Resource Council in the 1970s to control coal development in Wyoming. That's another story entirely. And there's an article about it on the Open Range Record about Eric Barlow. But then you find this paragraph. So Michelle Barlow drove to this meeting that they're talking about with Mark Gordon. Here's what the article says. She drove from Wyoming with Mark Gordon, who ranches near Buffalo, Wyoming, when he is not fighting coal bed methane development in the Powder River Basin. The former treasurer of the National Sierra Club said he's deeply involved in public education in his community in the last few years. Quote, it's good to be back in the environmental movement where things are easier. Now, you listen to that. When he's not fighting coal bed methane development in Wyoming, kind of leads you to believe that maybe, just maybe, he's not as pro-energy as he claims.
So help me out here, because
Yep.
I'm trying to follow. We started this with who's Bruce Palmer, but we're
Yep.
talking about Liz Storr. We're talking about Mark Gordon. I can't even say his name without.
We're getting to Bruce Palmer.
Okay, I'm trying to make connections here.
Yep, and this is a really long story. So let me just and thank you for bringing this up, Ken. So let me just give you the big cliff notes of where we are right here. Mark Gordon's running for his first election in 2018. Independent Republicans of Wyoming shows up 6 days before the primary election. Robocalls go out. And Mark Gordon issues a statement that says, I'm being accused of being anti-coal. And I was just pointing out that article for you in 2001 from High Country News to show you that there is evidence that Mark Gordon is not as pro-energy as he says. And so let's see here. Where was I? Oh, yeah, back to the article. Here we go. So let's see here. And by the way, I'll post a link to this article. And actually, you know what I'll do is I will I'll make a PDF of it, and then I'll link it on the website so that you can see it. So to answer your question, Agent 29, here it is. Quote from the article: the Independent Republicans of Wyoming is one of many groups that participated in the election by encouraging Wyoming residents of all parties to vote through social media, calls, and texting. According to an Independent Republicans of Wyoming statement emailed to WyoFile by Bruce Palmer, a Lander resident affiliated with other progressive Wyoming groups. Quote, unlike other efforts, though, the Independent Republicans of Wyoming follow the law, the statement said. As a 501c4 registered with the state of Wyoming, the IRW will be filing the required independent expenditure form when it is due. Everything that was done by IRW was in full view and properly attributed. The IRW did not employ robocalls as their efficacy is low. See, that's the part that's up for debate because, I've got a stack of documents back in the office at home where that calls that into question. That's why I said they were probably responsible for those robocalls. And so this effort in 2018, Bruce Palmer is in the middle of it. And now he's a guy that's in the middle of Republican Senator Cale Case's campaign. Fascinating, right? Who would have thought that a Republican would hire a Democrat, a guy that, and I didn't check Bruce Palmer's voter registration. I should, but I mean, he's obviously affiliated with lots of progressive groups, and he has been for a really long time. His email address is Turn Fremont Blue. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that that's what it is. So you see here, my friends, that a lot of these characters that show up in Wyoming politics have really been involved before, perhaps under different names, perhaps different groups. And by the way, independent Republicans of Wyoming, let's see if it says it in the article here. But they, let's see here. So shortly after, and I don't see it in this piece, but shortly after the election, that group folded. So 6 days before the primary, all the robocalls happen. Switch for Wyoming is going on, and then boom, they're done. And Bruce Palmer is in the middle of it. Oh, what a twisted web we weave. But Nancy Case, you got some splaining to do, my friend, that you've hired a Democrat to help you with your campaign. So let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the program. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program. It's Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm David Iverson, your illustrious host, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. Welcome back to the program. If you
have those documents over here somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
Post-it note or something.
Well, I mean, it's hard to find. You know, we have to keep track of it because there are. You know, that's a record that a lot of people would like to see tarnished. And, you know, and how do I get that? So there's a good question. So the best journalists issue retractions. And I do. When I make a mistake, I lead it. You know, if I get something wrong, the very first thing I do is come out and say, hey, I was wrong about this. I told you this the other day, and I wasn't right. So leading with my mistakes. Well, there have been, I don't, thousands of Cowboy State Politics episodes. On the podcast, there's well over 1,000 episodes, by the way, there is no other Wyoming podcast that's done that. Is it political podcast, definitely. I'll do some research and make sure out of all Wyoming podcasts. But
I hate to say it, but you made one misstep.
What did I do
today?
What did I do?
You mentioned the $32 billion in savings and referred to it as the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. The Permanent Mineral Trust Fund is only a portion of
I
that
did.
chunk,
Okay,
yeah.
so there we go.
So technically, it was inaccurate, but you were on a roll, and I didn't.
I was on a roll. Well, there's a lot of it in the Permanent Mineral Trust
But
Fund.
if you're out there listening, saying, "Ha ha, he doesn't know what he's talking about," yes, we do know what we're talking about. But you made a great point when you said there are thousands of these things out there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many podcasts I've been on and how many hours of me being out there. You're bound to say something inadvertently.
Right. And so here's how that number is calculated. So you look at how many retractions I've had to issue, and then you divide it out, and there you go. And 99% of the time, I'm right.
And yet, because word mean thing, and this is why I appreciate that statement about almost always right.
Almost always.
You don't
right.
even have to be right. You just have to almost be right.
That's right.
Most of the time, always. That's a waffle word there.
All right. So before the break, and Agent 29 brought up a great point. So we're all led to believe in politics that all these things are new. You got a candidate. Oh, new candidate, new governor. Well, maybe yes, maybe no, but the people behind him really don't change. And a lot of the folks that are still involved in Wyoming politics have been for a very, very, very long time. So, for example, the governor's chief of staff, Drew Perkins. Drew Perkins was the president of the Senate at one time, a longtime legislator, and then he got the job working, being the chief of staff for Governor Gordon, and he's still behind the curtain. There's another guy who is he a chief policy advisor or?
I don't know, but it's interesting when you go sit in Mark Gordon's office. It's Drew and Randall that do all the talking.
Yeah, Randall Luthi is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Longtime legislator, been involved in Wyoming politics a really long time, and so the names might change at the top. But the names and faces behind the curtain, no, they're not changing. And think about all these folks that are, running for office. So Steve Harshman, we're going to get to him in just a little bit. He's running for superintendent of public
20 years
instruction.
in the legislature.
20 years in the legislature. Cale Case has been around for a really long time. One of the funnier, better, I don't know. More fun for me episodes that I did was talking about Tax Reform 2000. It's what a great name, right? We're gonna reform taxes. Well, Cale Case was central to that, and it was an effort by Democrats and so-called Republicans to try to get an income tax going into Wyoming, and that was back in the late 90s. Cale Case, he's been around for a long time.
Same people are still working, and when you look at the governor's race and you see Eric Barlow and you realize that there's absolutely nothing there too, it's just going to be exactly more of the same people in control.
Yeah, definitely same ideology.
And then we have a younger one out there, Megan Degenfelder, but essentially plugged into the same group. And folks, I don't know, the host probably can't say this, but I can. That's why I love the idea of Brent Bean.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that. I mean, I like Brent. He's a nice guy. I think he's a conservative.
But I'm saying, I'm speaking for myself. The opinions of the producer are not necessarily often, believe it or not necessarily the same as the host. But here you've got somebody that truly is an outsider. Now, that's a whole nother challenge.
Yes.
Which we don't need to get into that now. But you start getting into this incestuous, the same people, the same swamp, over and over and over for years. Well, maybe if we elect Eric Barlow, things will change.
No, they won't.
They won't.
No, they won't. Eric Barlow, for his part of it, he's been in the legislature, 12 years, 13 years, something like that. He was very much involved in the Powder River Basin Resource Council, which, by the way, he just issued a statement. and it was in in response to our article that's entitled "Born in a Barn: Eric Barlow and a History of Radical Environmental Politics." He's the guy that teamed up with Earth Justice to sue the state over coal bed methane development. Actually, about water, but as a byproduct of coal bed methane. And so, all of these people have long histories. And now that we're talking about Bruce Palmer and Cale Case, that's just another layer on top of it. Bruce Palmer has just been an activist for a really long time, a progressive one. Don't think that when you see a new name that there are different people behind him, because often it's the same folks. And pulling the strings. I don't want to create the image of a puppet master, but when you get this many longtime insiders behind candidates, that's what you get. And behind Megan Felder, so you have Deemer True. Deemer True was the chairman of the Wyoming Republican Party for a long time, big-time old guy. Matt Michaeli, he's right in there. Michaeli's PAC gave Megan Felder $105,000. It's all tied in together. And I'm just happy that we can, I can show you the connections. And, I'm really happy I remembered this article from 2018.
Yeah, well done on that. I wouldn't have.
Yeah. Well, mind like a steel trap, my friend. That's why I'm the host. And,
nothing gets in, nothing gets
nothing
out.
gets out. Here we go. Now, Ken, I just have a question for you. You're on this program most of the time, 4 days a week, right? Lots of media exposure. What possesses you to get in the headlines even more than that? I mean, are you lacking in media coverage, or?
I probably don't have a real high IQ.
Oh, I doubt that. From the Cow Pie, Gordon orders agency to start food welfare program. Lawmaker says, stay in your lane. From the Cow Pie, and I quote, after the Wyoming legislature repeatedly rejected a roughly $3 million effort to fund free and reduced school lunches during kids' summer months away from school, the governor ordered one of his agencies to find a way to start the program. Gordon's office touted his executive order as kickstarting the Summer Sunbucks program in a Wednesday statement as much-needed gesture of mercy towards Wyoming families as grocery prices rise. Quote, while the legislature is unwilling, and we talked about this yesterday on the program, while the legislature is unwilling to make sure our young children get food throughout the summer months, we have stepped up to ensure it happens, Gordon said in a statement. We've been able to cobble together a one-time only bare-bones effort under the current Wyoming Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and the Department of Education to ensure current eligible children will be fed. Now, that's an awfully broad claim. We're going to ensure that children are going to be fed. Do you believe that?
Oh, I do believe that that's what they are saying it's about. There's so much to unpack there. For one thing, there are several programs to feed kids, and whether or not it's the
some of them are
job,
duplicative.
Yeah, whether or not it's the government's job to feed kids is an entirely another issue. I think you all know where I stand.
Oh, we're about to tell everybody again.
Yeah, but they're all talking about this idea as this money was proposed, and there was an ask from the department, from DFS, Department of whatever services.
Family Services, right?
Well, I'm thinking Department of Family Separation.
Yeah, well, that's
I
more.
wasn't going to say that.
Well, I mean, it's pretty accurate.
Anyway, they put in a request because they wanted to start this Sunbucks project. So they put in a request for $1.7 billion, 1.7 million. Don't get.
They get confusing.
And that money was not to buy food. It was not to give anything to the kids. That money was just to set up the bureaucracy that would manage that.
Yeah.
You haven't given out anything yet. And it came before the legislature, and the legislature said, no, and if you really want to help somebody, why not take that $1 million and plug it into food banks, and there was some of that done earlier. We know that. Why not do some of those things that actually put food in the hands of people? All we're doing is creating an entirely new system, and we're wasting almost $2 million trying to get it set up before anybody gets $2 million is a lot of money to buy a lot of food through an existing system.
Well, $2 million is a lot of money, and it would buy a lot of food if indeed all of the money that was requested for the Sunbucks thing was actually to go to that. And do you still have that graphic we showed from yesterday?
I don't. We showed it yesterday, and I could pull it up maybe after the break or something. But I actually went to what you're talking about is I went to the request itself from DFS where they were asking for the funds. And that's what I've been saying. It wasn't to buy food with. It was to set up yet another office, IT programs over $1 million, and a computer program to track where the food goes. I mean, none of it adds up to me.
Now, this next part, Ken, may come as a giant surprise to everybody, perhaps including you. But much to Claire McFarland, who is the author of this piece, much to her credit, in this piece, she says, and this is on deep into the article.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to get credit for being concise. Yeah. But anyway, she does point out, and listen to this. DFS's budget pitch says the Summer Electronics Benefit Transfer Program, which is where this money is going, would provide grocery benefits to eligible school-age children during the summer months when school meals are not available, and that $1.6 million of that total figure would be a one-time startup expense, primarily to start the eligibility IT system. It's for a computer system. The remaining $1.93 million, so now it's the rest of them. Listen to this sentence. The remaining $1.93 million would fund a full-time program manager, administrative costs, and IT, and that request would be ongoing after the budget's life expires. So that was the proposal that was before the legislature. It wasn't for food.
No.
It was for a computer system and for staff. That's what that was for, and that's why the legislature said no. It didn't have, there wasn't any cash there, or the bulk of that money was not to go to feeding kids.
It wouldn't have bought a single candy bar.
It wouldn't have bought a candy bar, okay? So now, that's buried deep in the article, and like I said, to McFarland's credit for bringing that up.
And thank you for saying that. Claire actually wrote what I think is a pretty fair...
I think it is.
And hats off to you, Claire. I appreciate that. Keep up the good work.
Now, here's another piece that am very impressed that this is in there. So the governor says that we're going to feed kids over the summer. In fact, let's get his client.
Starting in June.
All right. So here's what he says. We have been able to cobble together a one-time, quoting now from the piece, bare-bones effort under current Wyoming SNAP and Department of Education data to ensure current eligible children will be fed.
So they cobbled together something with data.
That's
what are you
going to
feed them? Data?
That's what it says.
No, he used the word data because what they're really talking about is we found some money laying around somewhere. We're going to use that.
Right. So,
and then calls it data.
The important part, that's important, but he says that it's going to ensure. Ensure means, words mean things here, Governor. To ensure something is to say that this will definitely happen. 100%, this is going to happen. And then the rest of the sentence says, current eligible children will be fed. Will is a promise. So it leads you to believe that over the summer, these kids are going to have food, right?
Well, it goes on. Yeah, if you go on to the governor's, it may not in the article, but the governor's letter said they're going to feed kids from June through August.
Yes. And I
specifically said
wow, that's a lot of lunches. Now, how many, and parents out there, answer me this. How much money would you spend in groceries, do you think, to feed your kids lunch for an entire summer? For 90, however long summer is, 90 days, 3 months?
Well, it depends. Are they getting processed dinners or are they getting PBJ?
I don't know that it matters, right?
Macaroni and cheese.
If you are buying enough bread and jelly and peanut butter and maybe some butter, and I'm one of those odd people. I like butter on my peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Let's not talk about that.
Well, anyway, I do like that. So if you're buying all of those goods and you're feeding your kid for an entire summer, how much do you think that would cost? Well, I'll tell you how much the governor thinks that's going to cost to ensure that eligible children will be fed. And I quote, Families would receive a one-time payment of $120 to a prepaid card similar to a Snap Electronics benefit card. Do you think that $120 is going to feed kids for an entire summer? No. I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if that was actually the case. It's not.
There are some other things built into this, and I've got some data coming which will help explain this. But just to give you the idea that these programs are linked through the school, and if enough kids at a particular school qualify, then all the kids in the school will qualify. So it's built to expand exponentially.
Yes.
There are all kinds of issues that are involved with it. And the core of the matter is we already have a number of programs out there that are feeding kids. And then we get into the whole other aspect of, is it a good thing that the government is feeding everybody?
Oh boy. Well, we're going to cover that in just a second. So there's and let's do a quick recap. There's a couple of different things going on here. The governor says that he's cobbled together a bunch of money
No, he said data. He didn't say any money.
Okay, yes, data.
We know what he meant, but that's what he said.
That's what he said. Words mean things. So he's cobbled together a bunch of data, and that it's going to ensure that kids will be fed throughout the summer. But we also know that the budget request, which he's the one he says he's fixing, that the legislature refused to fund, had nothing to do with that it was for IT and management and administration costs. And then we find out that this whole effort is going to give $120 to eligible families for the entire summer in a one-time payment. So, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So now let's get to when Agent 29 enters the article. And let's see here. McFarland writes, Gordon hinged multiple line item vetoes in the state's budget this year on assertions that they violated the separation of powers. Quote, Ken says, it's funny how somebody's who's so staunch about staying in your lane, when you read his budget vetoes, you're infringing on the right of this branch or of that branch, and he sure doesn't mind going in the other direction, said Pendergraft in a Wednesday phone interview. Pendergraft is a member of the Joint Appropriations Committee, which attempted to, in January, to trim Gordon's $10 billion biennial budget, which I think it was probably like 9.9, by about $480 million. And then, let's see here, where is it? Anyway, Pendergraft said that the governor should stay in your lane. In fact, here it is. Quote, stay in your lane, governor, said Pendergraft. You're creating a problem here because once you start handing out the money to people, then what choice has the legislature? And correct me if I'm wrong, but what Ken is saying is once the government starts handing out money, that is, you start a program in which you're getting people more dependent upon a government system, what is the legislature going to do? I mean, what choice do they have in the matter once the governor has issued an executive order? And we can talk about whether or not governors should be able to issue executive orders anyway. But the point here is that the governor, according to Ken, needs to stay in his lane, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, Agent 29. So there's that one. Media hound Ken Pendergraft tells the governor to stay in his lane.
What are the reasons? You know, I'll mention it again, I got an email here, which maybe we should read with the bleeps. Why would somebody refuse children food if they're really hungry?
Nobody would.
That's true. Nobody would. We had a long discussion yesterday about scripturally how we're supposed to support the poor. And, you know, you give of your assets, your abundance to others. This proposal says we're going to, one entity is going to take money from you because they know better how to spend it.
Right.
And then they're going to give it to somebody else that may or may not be able to go out and do what you did to earn yours. But all of this builds up and creates a dependency. And yeah, we still got time before the break. I made a comment yesterday about. Okay. I see you raising your hand.
Well, no, don't go too far down that
okay,
road.
I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's very frustrating when people become dependent upon government, and there is a natural tendency of people to take the easy way.
Sure.
And that's part of what this comes to. When you take away somebody's right to fail, you take away their right to succeed. And it's easy to turn around and play the victim card and turn a safety net into a hammock. And I'll stop it there. But
Okay, so the reason I was like, well, hold on a minute, is I wanted to have the discussion of how how government creates dependency and how that actually works in Wyoming before we get to the soundbite. Now, yesterday we told you, hey, we're thinking of the soundbite and we don't have it at our fingertips. Well, we've got it, and we're going to play it for you here in just a second. But one of the places where government creates dependency is we've been talking about food assistance, but there's another one, healthcare. So if an entitlement is created, if there is some sort of healthcare type program that the legislature sets up, let's talk about Medicaid expansion for that hasn't been brought up in the legislature the last couple of sessions, thank God. Maybe KOK's got the hint 17 times after it was defeated, but anyway, that was a common one for several years, that we have to expand Medicaid so that everybody can get health services.
And thank God we didn't, because when the big beautiful bill passed and they pulled a lot of that money back, states were left holding the bag.
Yes. And so here's what happens. If you start a health care entitlement, you can't stop it because you've given somebody health care. And there's, I can't remember what the law is right now, but once you start that entitlement, you can't stop it. And with Medicaid expansion, the way it was sold is the government, the federal government would cover 90% of the cost, the state would cover 10%. Well, one of our arguments is, whoa, wait a minute here. What if the federal government says we're not doing this anymore, which is what the big beautiful bill did? Then we're on the hook for 100% of the cost because we can't take that entitlement away. Now, to our point yesterday, Ken referenced a meeting of the Select Committee on Tribal Relations, and this was a big argument during the legislative session that. And Ken, you can fill in the details here, but essentially there was a big pot of money, and Ken initially said, no, we're going to cut that out. What was it, like $60 million or something like that?
Well, the numbers don't matter, but there was an ask for monies which usually go without question to the tribes to provide and support health care. And they made an ask which just, to me, it didn't add up. And so we essentially challenged it, and they went back and they said, we've got some new reports in. We were overcompensating for inflation. Actually, we only need this much, and it was substantially less.
A lot less.
And so after we had threatened to completely withhold it, which is all federal funds, so people are saying, what are you doing? What are you smoking? We just wanted to make sure that even though it's federal funds, it's still tax dollars. We want to make sure that we're spending what we need to spend. Of course, the tribes got upset and worried because they weren't going to receive their monies. They ended up getting exactly what they needed. It all worked out
Everything
well.
worked out fine.
And in this soundbite, Representative Baer, who's chairman of Appropriations, has just testified essentially what I was just telling you, that the tribes are going to get their money. The guy that's going to be doing the speaking in the video is in charge of a number of clinics across the reservation. And he opened his testimony, I'm not going to show that part, by saying, I think I could cry.
Yeah.
He was very happy that actually the money was going to come through because they were afraid that money wasn't going to be there.
Okay, now, there is a solid argument to be made that the United States government perhaps intentionally created a permanent state of dependence on reservations. And the reason I say it's a solid argument because I think there's a lot of evidence to support that. And we're dealing with a culture, and all you have to do is take a trip, to the reservation up in as you're headed to Billings or whatever, and it's very obvious that it's a very much economically depressed area, and a lot of it, like I said, there's a good argument to be made that that's due to the intentional state of dependence that has been created. So this is the soundbite we were talking about yesterday. Go ahead and play it.
Okay, we'll play it, and folks, as this plays, keep an eye on the people seated behind the speaker
Yeah,
as well.
go ahead and hit play.
Would like to thank Chairman Beard personally,
Bear.
because he has made my day. And Senator Salazar, thank you so much. And I am so grateful because without the funding, our people would die.
Wow.
Okay, we are either the lowest or the second lowest funded.
Now think about that for a minute. Without this funding, our people will die. What a sad, a tragic
It is.
situation.
This is a great people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're reduced to this, that if we don't throw them our scraps, they're going to die. What have we created, people? And
Yeah.
yet we're trying to do the same thing with our own people.
Yeah, and look at. I hope you noticed the folks in the back. And one thing that struck me in that video is they're all nodding with him. Yeah, you know, and you know, I mean, the guy sitting to the left there, left of the screen. Yeah, he looks like he's a strapping fellow.
He looks capable.
Yeah, and so, but I think that more to the point here is the sense of entitlement that we have created. That without this federal funding, without us getting dollars, we are going to die.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not just entitlement, but dependency. And that's what I don't
Yeah.
want. I don't want to see people and families becoming dependent upon whatever the current administration is willing to toss their way. We need to stand on our own, and these are great people. America is a great nation, and what we just see here is, as I stated, and it was copied in the article, this is un-American. This
Yeah.
is just wrong.
Yeah. So, you know, so when we talk about, you know, and going back to the piece from McFarland about Gordon's Sunbucks, you know, we're claiming that, and perhaps this is another aspect of it. You know, Gordon's claiming that he's going to ensure that kids are fed. Now, if that's a laudable goal, if that's indeed what he's trying to do, but then later in the piece you find out that it's really only $120. That's not enough to ensure kids are fed.
And
Sorry, Gov.
There are some other things. It's also there's no future there without the legislature coming in back in it, and that was part of my problems. The legislature had already evaluated it and said no, and so he steps into our lane and says, "Well, we're going to do this program." Well, that's only effective as long as he's in office. So he's got like 3 months. They're going to do this program. Now you've created a big problem, and.
Well, and okay, so that's an interesting point too, because it's an executive order, and so what could happen is the legislature could get together next I guess it would be January because it's a general session, and they could say no, we're not doing this anymore.
Politically, very, very difficult, which I think is why he did what he did.
I'm sure, but you know he's out of office come January, and so what happens now? So anyway, I mean, it's I think it's a big problem, and I don't think that he's being entirely truthful. And it's I think the whole thing stinks.
It's a little bit like maybe some member of the family goes out and I don't know how you would do it, but signs a lease agreement or a loan agreement to make a purchase and puts up a small down payment, and then has now obligated the rest of the family to pay it.
Yeah.
And they had no say in it. We don't elect the executive branch to make policy. They are there to execute policy. And when they start, and I point the same finger at Trump. I despise the way that Trump is leading in that way, that he does everything by executive order. Fiat.
Yeah.
That is no way to govern.
Yep. All right. So it's Open Line Friday. We'll continue in just a second. But first, an absolutely outrageous exposition of pure capitalism. Back in a minute with Open Line Friday. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. State Politics Live. I'm David Iverson, and it is Open Line Friday, 307-374-8989. If you want to be part of the show, if you got something to talk about, we've still got about a half hour left in the program, so if there's something that you want to chat about, go ahead and give me a call. One more time, that phone number is 307-374-8989. Steve Harshman. Oh, the
Watch
coach.
your mouth.
It's my program. I'll say what I like. Steve Harshman has announced that he is going to be running for the superintendent of public instruction from, I believe this is from the Cowboy. Casper State Representative Steve Harshman, the longest-serving Wyoming House member, is running for the state superintendent of public instruction. Quote, bottom line, I love Wyoming schools and spent my life in Wyoming schools. Long time. He's a teacher. Doesn't he understand about sentence construction? A third candidate. He's the third candidate to join the race. He is the former two-time Speaker of the House of Representatives and the chamber's longest-serving member. He told Cowboy State Daily on Thursday that he's running to become the superintendent. Let's see here.
My own education is going to suffer without him, though, because I almost had a master's degree in history from
yeah.
listening.
Well, and it's funny they attack you guys of being told how to vote on every bill. Yeah. What are you going to do without Harshman? I mean, you can watch him from the gallery. He just makes the rounds around the floor.
In fact, to back that up, the picture that goes with this story, the announcement, he's walking back to his chair. Guess who's sitting right behind him? It was not one of the better pictures they got of me.
Yeah, well. So, bottom line. He says he spent his whole life in schools and, quote, and I think you can do some real good for our kids, parents, grandparents, and our teachers, because they're the ones who really unlock a kid's potential. Harshman was born in Wyoming, raised in a small Natrona County town of Midwest, and has taught and coached for decades. Let's see here. And, I mean, the rest of this thing is kind of a puff piece. But
I have to say this. He's a great football coach.
Not as good as the Sheridan coach, though, evidently. Sorry, Steve. I had to get that dig in there. Let's see here. He said 40 years in teaching and coaching familiarize himself with on-the-ground challenges in schools. He noted that he's had a major impact on public education in Wyoming. He was the principal author of the Hathaway Scholarship and championed its cause after its formation. He also served on the recalibration committees to reevaluate the cost of education, blah, 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 blah. Steve Harshman is also one of the most liberal members of the House of Representatives, and throughout his career, he has voted with the Democrats 81.2% of the time. Over 80% of the time, Steve Harshman has voted with the Democrats. So why is it that he is going to govern any different than what you might expect from Governor Mark Gordon or from any of his predecessors, Democrats included. The truth is that Steve Harshman has claimed to be a Republican this entire time, and he is the furthest thing from it. If, like I mentioned before, if there's a dollar that isn't nailed down, Steve Harshman will spend it on education. Now, you might say that that's a good thing. You're spending a lot on education, gotta spend it on the schools. But Steve Harshman is also principally responsible for the current school funding problem we now find ourselves in. He's the guy that helped create the escalators. He's the guy that helped jack up the price of education to north of $20,000 per student. And he's also the guy, and I mean, if you're, and here's the thing, right? If you're the person that says, I've been deeply involved in education for my entire career, well, then you have to take some of the negative that goes along with that. He's also the guy that I've heard on the floor say how great all of our graduation rates are. He's also the guy that bears responsibility for our low test scores, focusing on those graduation rates. He's the guy that through his whole time focusing on Wyoming education that has really paid little attention to the quality of our schools. I was always told if you're there, you're at least 50% responsible. And Steve Harshman has been one of the principal guys through just about every education bill, except the ones where we try to get some accountability or anything. There's a lot of questions that old Harshman needs to answer. You need to watch the movie The Flim Flam Man. If you want to know what Steve Harshman is like while he's working down on the floor, watch The Flim Flam Man. You'll look at George C. Scott, and yep, it's Steve Harshman. I mean, it's just the arguments that he makes. Ken, you mentioned earlier that, how else are you going to learn the history of the legislature? And what Ken's talking about is the last couple of sessions, Harshman has made a serious effort to waste a tremendous amount of legislative time, extending debates with frivolous amendments and a lot of the budget amendments that were, that took you guys until the wee hours of the morn to talk about. A lot of those were duplicative, and Harshman was behind many of them.
And most of those speeches would evolve into some sort of just when I go up on the balcony up there and I look at the pictures on the wall and I think about all the
Yeah.
And how many times have we heard that?
Over and over and over. One of my favorite pictures of him, he's leaned back in his chair and he's just staring at the ceiling, because at least once, and often many times during the session, you'll hear him get into his speech. Now, just look at this ceiling, how beautiful it is.
I have to say that I do that too. The first time I ever walked onto that floor, it's
pretty
inspiring.
Cool.
Yeah,
it is pretty cool.
And I'll be listening to him or Bob Nicholas or somebody else, not so much Nicholas, but Larson, dragging on and on and on, and look up at the ceiling and look around and think, this is a magnificent place. Why are we putting up with this?
Right.
He has, and I will say this in Steve's defense, if you will, he has a true love for that building.
He does.
And for the history that's there, such as he sees it. And it is a magnificent place. And if you haven't been to the Capitol, you need to go and check it out. And if you need somebody to give you a tour of it,
Steve's
your man.
Yeah. Yeah. He's, and during the session, I was trying to make a list of interesting people to interview, for our journalists. Not that they didn't have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But I was like, you know what? A guy that would be super interesting to talk to interview would be Steve Harshman. Now, I can't vouch for the veracity of everything that he would tell you. But he would be a pretty interesting guy to sit down and talk to for
you can't
30 minutes.
Spend 20 years being a part of an organization and not have some tales to tell.
Oh, for sure. For sure. All right, so totally different subject, and this is one that I've made it a point to talk about, and I always preface this next topic by telling you that the entire Open Range record was built using AI. I don't know how to program a mobile app. So I used AI to do it. Now, I had to go in and check all the code to make sure everything worked. And, I built the website with AI. Could I do that part on my own? Yes. But it was much faster with using AI to do it. And, AI is a tool. And like all tools, if you use it for its proper function and use it the way that it was intended, I don't see a problem with it. But when your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And Ken, you being a carpenter, I'm sure you could appreciate that analogy. When we try to use AI for everything, it can become destructive. And like all tools, if you're doing delicate carpentry work, and you pull out the framing hammer, things are probably not going to go well. You're going to leave marks on just about everything, and you probably end up destroying the thing that you're working on. Such is the case with AI, that if you let it out of the box, bad things can happen. And now this is a piece from Breitbart, and these are companies that everybody in this audience uses one or the other. But the title of this piece is Apple and Google continue to offer, quote, nudify apps that use AI to generate deep fake porn. And this is, when AI first started, this was one of my biggest fears, that eventually we're going to get to a place where you can't tell the difference between something that's generated by AI and an actual picture. That you're just not going to be able to tell the difference. And the only way that you'd be able to is with sophisticated software that looks for traits of AI. But even so, we're going to get to a point where those traits are no longer going to be there. That the AI becomes so sophisticated that it will be able to eliminate those things on its own. Here's what the piece from Breitbart says. Apple and Google are continuing to offer nudify apps that allow users to create AI-generated deepfake pornography of real people, despite both companies maintaining policies that explicitly prohibit such content. Bloomberg reports that a report published Wednesday by the Tech Transparency Project has revealed that the tech giants are still hosting these apps that enable users to create this non-consensual, nude and partially nude deepfake images of real people. The research organization found that users can easily access these apps by searching for terms like nudify or undress in both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. The applications can be used to digitally alter images of both celebrities and the general public to make them appear nude or partially nude. According to the report, the companies are not merely hosting these apps, but are actively directing users to them through search results and advertisements. The Tech Transparency Project identified 18 apps with nudifying capabilities in the Apple App Store and 20 in the Google Play Store. Both platforms also use their autocomplete functions to suggest names of additional nudifying apps as users type in search terms. The scale of the issue is substantial. Apps identified by the research group have been downloaded 483 million times collectively and generated approximately $122 million in revenue, according to estimates from market researcher AppMagic. The spokesman for the AppMagic confirmed that the Tech Transparency Project's work has resulted in several apps being removed and prompted others to modify their policies. All right, so couple of things here. How does one submit an app to either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store? Well, first you program it, and then you submit it for it to do some checks on it. And there's a whole list of policies that you have to agree to. One of those says, is it going to have any nudity in it? And so the checks are done automatically, and most of what they do is check the functionality of the app to make sure all the things function and it's not going to be a dud that people are going to complain about. But other than that, they rely on user feedback from it. In fact, there's a trial period that you're supposed to go through to where it's just like a beta. It's called a beta test. You've probably heard that term before. But you beta test your app just to get all the kinks worked out of it and make sure everything runs smoothly. But just think about this. With these nudity apps, Let's say that you are in the middle, you're embroiled in a divorce proceeding, and the person you're divorcing walks into the courtroom with a video of you and the neighbor's spouse, and you look at it and you're like, I didn't do that. How are you to prove that you didn't? I mean, how if AI is becoming so sophisticated, how can you legitimately say that's not me? I didn't do that. Well, they have the video of you doing it. It looks pretty darn legitimate to the court. You see, all of these things that we do have real world consequences. And think about, there's been cases in Wyoming of, I'm just going to call it revenge porn, but what it is people, masquerading as another person and sending text messages. Well, I mean, if you can create pictures of this, what's to say that somebody could not post an illicit video of you that's completely generated from AI? That would be pretty easy. I mean, we're talking about the ability to ruin a person's life. Go back to the so-called Me Too movement, where just about everybody was searching the past years of social media posts, trying to find something incriminating about just about everybody. And if you said something that was a little bit off color, well, then you were vilified in the press. I mean, there were a lot of public figures, members of Congress, that lost their positions when perhaps what they were being accused of was completely innocuous. Now, if you take that to a whole new level with pictures and video and things that are completely created out of thin air, I mean, how easy would it be to completely destroy a person's life? I mean, with a couple of clicks of your mouse. I mean, that's terrifying.
It is terrifying, and from a public figure kind of position, even more so. And, we've noticed those of us that are out trying to find people to run for office.
It's hard.
We've noticed that it's getting more and more difficult to get somebody to, for one thing, a lot of people can't afford to.
Yeah, this is going to be an expensive election.
You can't give up the work. Well, not just the election, but once that's done and the amount of time that it takes to do the job versus what it pays, you've got to have other income from others. You can't do it. You're going to catch all kinds of hell if you're doing anything at all worth doing. You got the fear that maybe somebody's going to do something like that to discredit or to destroy you. And why would you want to do this? This is a bad direction that we're going on so many levels, and something's got to give.
Well, and it's so often for the open range record, when I don't have a picture or something, I just go to ChatGPT and say, create an image depicting this and have these elements in it. And it doesn't take any more than a minute to do it. And often, the pictures are pretty realistic looking. Mm-hmm. The really funny Gail Simmons caricature that we made.
Yeah, the angry leprechauns.
The angry leprechauns. Yeah.
But...
those are pretty simple to make. It doesn't take all that much effort. And you don't have to be a computer genius to do it. I mean, you could just say, create me a picture of, Ken sitting behind his microphone in the studio.
And then once you look at it, say, make him look mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were several images floating around of John Bear, portraying him as the devil or the puppet master. And okay, so they're all cartoons, and it's obvious that it's, a political cartoon. But we're way past the time when you had to go track down somebody who was a pretty good cartoonist and say, hey, draw me a cartoon of, this situation. We're way past that now. You can do that in 30 seconds with AI. And so the solution, I think, to this is to just be, and this is one that is going to have to come from a grassroots level. You're just going to have to make an effort to, keep your life pretty clean, because that's the only defense that you're going to have. And even so, people are going to dig up stuff and misinterpret and twist stuff around. I mean, this is, when I think of AI, I truly think that it's a pretty terrifying thing.
Yeah, and they're the type of people, the anger that is out there. they're not above just making stuff up out of thin air.
No, and it's and you know what's funny? Well, it's not funny. What goes along with this is the reaction that people have to politics, and we are so far past just sending an email that says, you know, thanks for taking away my income. You're a dirty rat. Well, if you want to read it, you can. But we're to a place where, like Ken, you've let me listen to a couple of voicemails that you've received, and they're just obscene. They're unhinged and like full of profanity. And so you got an email last night. And,
I'll read you this one, but I'll bleep it.
okay. All right.
It's entitled "Stay in Your Lane, Bleep." Way to starve Wyoming kids, bleeper. I bet you haven't struggled to feed kids these days, have you? He has no idea where I've been and what I've been through. Anyway, do you think life is easy raising kids in this economy? This isn't the golden age you grew up in, blanker blanker. You can't buy a burger for 25 cents anymore. How's not paying an absurd mortgage or rent? Not all of us bought a house when it cost as much as a car nowadays. In conclusion, go blank yourself, you blankety blanking blanker.
Yeah, and it's it's pretty horrendous.
It's conducive there, I think, to let's have a conversation with this gentleman and try to get to the core of no.
Well, and so there you go, right? Why would you want to have a conversation with somebody who's going to send you an email like that? But you did have a situation in during the session where a guy was sending you text messages that were pretty nasty.
Yeah. He would basically, while we're on the floor, actually, in the afternoon, would send text, and then an hour later sent one, see, I knew you were a bunch of chicken poo, that you wouldn't contact
respond to me.
So I finally, after about 4 or 5 of these, I just texted him and said, I'm on the floor in the middle of debates, and
I can't respond to you.
Long story short, we did correspond a little bit back and forth, and in the end, the last thing he said to me, he says, I might actually vote for you.
Well, you left out the important part that, well, I mean, it's all important, but you left out the part that is central to this discussion. So he's accusing Ken of, all sorts of things, and Ken says, well, I didn't do that. You can check my voting record right here. Go to wildledge.gov, and I think you just gave him the link. Well, the next message is, oh, well, I actually agree with a lot of your positions.
Yeah.
I just asked AI about you.
Yes.
And I found out
part of it,
that wasn't correct. And so that's the other part. And I did have somewhere in the stack, I've got a piece about how often AI is wrong. And I think I did cover that on an episode, but often AI makes mistakes, and 60% of the time there are errors.
We covered it a couple times, once for you and once for me.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I guess the end of this would be, keep AI in its proper box, use it as a tool, but just remember that the framing hammer isn't really all that great when you're using finishing nails. And things don't really end up all that great. So anyway, my friends, that'll do it for another busy broadcast week on the program. Don't forget about Weekend Update tomorrow on the podcast. Thanks for everything you do. Like, share, follow, tell everyone else. Have a good weekend, my friends.